Hey, welcome back to my channel. This video is a little different from my past videos. It's directly aimed at the parents and guardians of Service Academy applicants. So those students out there who are applying to Service Academies, please look at this video. You will learn a lot from it. But please send it over to your parent or guardian, or even sit down with your parent or guardian and have a look-see at it and discuss a lot of the things in it. This is a long process. This process is much longer than any civilian school. The process typically starts in the summer before your senior year. If you're a senior and you haven't started yet, there's other videos on this channel for you to look at. Okay, so let's get into it. Enough with the introductions and why we're here and what we're talking about. Okay, so parents and guardians. Your son, daughter, relative, or whatever relationship they are to you, will need a lot of support during this long process. Most people will only do this once in their life, and therefore they are not experts on it. They do not know how to do all the forms. They don't know how to manage the time. They sometimes don't understand the importance of hitting all the marks on time, making all the deadlines, etc. And this is where you come in. You have to support them. You have to monitor them. You have to make sure that they are moving along and that any obstacles that are in their way, you are helping to remove. So number one, what you can do if you haven't done this before is seek out other parents who have children at service academies, or a better suggestion would be seek out an academy liaison officer for the student's chosen academy. They will help guide you through the process and give you a lot of pointers for your congressional district and the state that you're in. It's very important to have those pointers. Make sure you hit the points with the congressmen and the senators, and you get that nomination process started as soon as possible. The Academy Liaison Officer will also help you with the appointment process for the chosen academy. There's a lot of things that go into this. There's a lot of essays, there's a lot of submissions from coaches and teachers, and scoutmasters and church leaders, etc., that all have to get put together. So you have to help round that up. So as your child or ward is working towards this, work with them to make sure that they have a schedule that they can follow, whether it be on the refrigerator, on the computer, wherever you keep things, and make sure it's out there in the open so you know that on X date that this submission has to be into the academy, the senators, or the congressmen. It's important that things are organized and get done. Now, your student might be the most organized person in the world. They might be more organized than you, and that's a great thing. But it's also important for you to keep an eye on to make sure they hit those dates. With all the submissions, it's really important to keep a copy of everything. I suggest at least 2 copies. I suggest a hard copy. You put in a file of things that you submitted, print it out, put it in a file, put it away somewhere. You always can scan it again and resubmit it if you have to. And I would suggest keeping a digital copy. And as we all know, computers fail, so I would suggest keeping a copy of that digital copy up in Google Drive, Dropbox, wherever you store your online documents. Make sure you have that. And the reason I tell you that is because my number 1 son, when he was applying to Naval Academy, his congressman lost everything. And he had called actually, and that's the next point, but he has called the office and said, hey, I didn't get a call for an interview. My friend at school got called for an interview. I didn't get called. Is there a problem? Well, yeah, there was a problem. They lost his folder. And they knew they lost his folder. They just didn't know whose folder that they lost, and they were happy that he called. He was able to send them everything again electronically. They printed it out. They put it back in the folder. And he got his interview, and he moved on from there. So it's important that you do this. Now, like I said, this is your son, daughter, ward's process of getting things done. It is not your process. You are not the one to call the academy, to call the congressman, to call the senator. It's important that they reach out themselves and they talk to these people. They talk to the office, they talk to the academy liaison officer. They do as much as they possibly can themselves. Now I know this generation, because I have two twin girls that are of this generation, they're Service Academy graduates, they prefer to text. They prefer to send an email, they prefer to text, and that's just how they are. It's nothing against them, that's what they do. Texting and sending emails is not the win-all and end-all of everything. Verbal conversation sometimes gets more. Because when you text and you say, hey, is my submission from Coach X in the file? And the person at the congressman's office will go and look in the file and go, yes, Coach X submitted his form. But if you call, they will pull the file while you're on the phone and they'll start flipping through the file. And they go, oh, Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, you know, you're missing this, you're missing that. You know, when are you taking the SAT again? You know, wink, wink. It might be advantageous for you to take the SAT again. There's so much more information that's transposed over the phone that's not done in a text or email. Just a word to the wise with that. Have them use the phone. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline for this. So I said earlier that the process begins in the summer of your senior year, of their senior year. And the congressional nomination process usually ends in January, February of the next year. So say, for example, if today is July 1, so it's July, August, September, October, November, December, January is when the process for the nominations, the congressional nominations, are over. So it's important to understand this process. The one problem that you'll run into, and I've had four kids that went to service academies, is that the school, the high school, the regular high school, does not understand this. They are used to getting flooded with requests for essays, for letters of recommendation, for coaches' recommendation, all this stuff in the beginning of the calendar year, because the civilian schools, you know, they start going like December through, you know, March or May when they're making their selections for the civilian schools. The service academies are much different. I would say they're 6 months ahead of the curve than the civilian schools. And a lot of times the guidance counselors, the math teachers, the English teachers, the coaches just don't understand that. It's important for your child to explain that to them. And it's important for you sometimes to have to step in and maybe make a call to the principal or assistant principal and say, hey, you know, Johnny, Janie, whoever is applying to West Point, and you know, he's asked you know, Coach so-and-so for a letter, and we need it. And I am not, you know, pushing on Coach, but you know, can you help Johnny get that letter from his coach? You know, a little nice phone call like that, explain the whole process to them. That will go a long way and help the process get smoothed out as the year goes on. Applying to the service academy is a very tough and rigorous thing. You know, if you look at my bio on my blog, you'll see that, you know, my wife and I both went, and my 4 kids all went to service academies. It's a tough process. There's a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of competition, and I mean, there's a lot of competition. You take the big schools like West Point, Annapolis, Air Force Academy. They have 1,000, 1,200, maybe 1,400 slots. Could be some years it could be up to 100,000 people throw their name in the hat for that. The smaller schools like Merchant Marine Academy and Coast Guard, which Coast Guard does not require a congressional nomination, but Merchant Marine and Coast Guard, they have maybe 250, at most 300 per class, and they'll have like 10,000 apply for those schools. It's highly selective. You know, everybody that applies is, you know, the top of the class, the fastest person in the school, the best basketball player. He's an Eagle Scout, she's a Gold Scout. You know, they do everything. You know, they cure cancer, they went to the moon and back. I mean, they're the top of the top. But there's a lot of people who are the top of the top, and there's a lot of competition. And for all the academies, but for Coast Guard Academy, that competition is state-based. So you're competing within the people within your state to get the nomination. Now there's finer points of that, and I won't go into that right now. But if there's 100 top SAT people who are the top football player and the top band person and the top whatever, and they're all medically qualified in the state of Delaware, only one of them is going to get in. So it's important for you to manage expectations with your child. You know, it's very alluring to go to one of these schools. People really get very worked up about it. They look forward to it. They look forward to the career that's after that. But the competition to get in is really, really difficult. So you have to manage the expectations, and sometimes unforeseen things happen. The student could be the best student there ever was, but they end up going for their DOBMER physical. That's the Department of Defense Medical Review Board physical, which required prior to going to the academy. And they find out they have a heart murmur that disqualifies them. It's heartbreaking, but that's a physical requirement that the DoD has, and they're not going to let you move forward with something like that that could actually affect your life during training or during a mission or whatever. So it's important for you to manage expectations with your child. The last thing I'll leave you with is that somebody once told us two things. Number one, for your parents out there who have gone to a service academy, you'll appreciate this, is that when your son or daughter goes to a service academy, you relive every transgression, every suffering, every test, everything again, just like it was yesterday. So if you were fortunate to go to a service academy, be prepared for the past to come back very strongly in your day-to-day life. The other thing is that, and in this process, there's a lot of stress. So be prepared for your child to be under a lot of stress and maybe act out against you. It's kind of like, they're carrying a backpack full of rocks on their back. And there's nobody for them to give the rocks to get the load off the back but you. So understand what's going on. They're under stress. They want to dump their rocks on you. Just take it. Remember, they're 17, 18 years old, and they're in this super competitive process with all these forms and all these requirements and physicals and letters and all this for something that's going to affect the next 9 to 10 years of their life. So be understanding, be supportive, and help them out. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm just going to give two plugs here. Number one, there's a link to my blog. I encourage you to go and look at that. And number two, I started a Instagram account just for this channel. There's a link to that too. It depends when you look at that. There might not be anything there, but look for daily posts, little tips of information, photos, whatever, to help you along with your journey. So I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions, leave them below. Send me an email. The link is in the comments. And I look forward to all of you participating on this channel and being successful and getting into a service academy. So take care and bye now.